I thought it was perfect. Like there was for someone that's as locked into the Joshi side of this all, and the AEW side even, there is a lot of people that hate or want to see Mercedes Moné fail. It's crazy to me.
There was
Maybe it's
one guy in the crowd who was catcalling her pretty much all night, and people were audibly telling him to shut the F up.
uh, he's lucky Bailey didn't beat him up. Um,
And she was
but
there. I saw a
yeah.
photo of her.
She was there. She was actually on the stream when she was somehow managed to go from the top level down to the floor by the time Mercedes walked out of the arena the first time. Because I saw her, they like high-fived on the way out. But I thought this match was perfect. Like I don't just toss perfect around, but Mercedes Moné had a lot to prove. She had a lot of doubters. She's on these interviews saying stardom wrestlers' names wrong. And I think that was purposely. I don't think she's like, clueless or anything. I think
Right.
she's doing that on point. Like she's saying Julian instead of Julia and uh AMZ instead of Azumi. Like she's saying all these things specifically, and I'm watching it. I'm like, and then I watched that documentary that she
Yeah.
posted the night before, which was fantastic. People need to check that out. It's only like 20 minutes. And I was like, not only are people going to learn how much this actually means to her, but they're going to see that she is as good as she was, 8, 9 months ago. Like that didn't go away. And from the entrance alone, paying respect to Hana Kimura, which I think is when everyone on the at least the Joshi side was like, oh, like they just were like stunned because no one saw that coming. Of course,
Yeah.
Hana Kimura passed away in 2020. And she makes her entrance down to the ring. She felt like the biggest star on the show. On a show that maybe Kazuchika Okada is maybe the only other person that felt like a bigger star. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just because of the Okada way. And people in the US don't get to see Okada all that much. But they went out there, they had a killer match, and I still think the right result was Mercedes winning
Yeah.
because her as the face of this IWGP Women's title for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, a year is better than none at all, truthfully. Like because and this match, which went nearly 28 minutes, by the way, it was like the perfect like, okay, we messed up at Wrestle Kingdom. They got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Kyrie and Tam got 5 minutes of in-ring action. Here's 28, and not only that, they're in the discussion at the very least of having the better match over an Okada and Tanahashi. I said it this week. What happens when you bet against Mercedes Moné and put her in a semifinal match rather than the main event? Brooklyn NXT Takeover Brooklyn, she delivers, and that's what she did once again.
So here's a question for you, which is, and so I said this even before the match started. Entrance comes out, she's got dancers, beat drops, she comes out, and I was like, how did Tony Khan not back up the Brinks trucks?
It's so true.
And we don't know all of the negotiation. There was a negotiation, I believe, and whatever happened. But what we saw last night is what AEW's women's division needs. Yep. Jamie Hayter is probably the best representation right now as far as being the total package.
Yep.
Britt, obviously, from a personality standpoint, from the in-ring, she doesn't have that quite yet. Toni Storm, I feel, was going to be a little bit more of that total package. She hasn't hit as well as I thought she was going to hit. And Ruby has been okay, but she hasn't become the star that they wanted. And Jade is still, probably another year or two away from actually being a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And I watched Mercedes, and I was like, oh my God, how did we swing and miss with this one? Who knows if she would have? I don't think she would have taken whatever the stipulations in the contract that Tony would have wanted to invest in her. But still, like, geez, this is exactly what they need.
Yeah.
And it was just so apparent to me from the entrance. This was even before the match that I thought was great too. So, uh, you know, I just wish it would have been on a little bit of a bigger stage in a better building on a not on a random Fight TV pay-per-view. Like this should have been like
Yeah.
big time. And I think some people missed out on that opportunity because this was amazing.
Yeah. I boldly claimed once upon a time that she would be the CM Punk version for the women's division if they brought her in
Speaking
that.
of, who was also in the building last night,
Yes, he was there to,
you know that he and
confirm what I
he and Meltzer were like a row away and maybe like 4 or 5 seats away from each other, and I don't think that they had a conversation from what I understand. So I don't know what was that. Maybe they did later, but
interesting.
from when I saw Punk, I don't think that they had
Interesting.
so interesting. Yeah, it was interesting to say the least.
Uh, but on the AEW part, I always thought she was that game-changing free agent for the women's division that they hadn't had yet. Sure, Tony was great. You could have your thoughts about Saraya however you please. I didn't think she was a game changer. She was a name, but I
Yeah,
didn't think she was a game changer. Mercedes Moné she changes everything.
yeah,
Star power and never did I think that Bushi Road was going to be more willing to back up the Brinks truck than Tony Khan for Mercedes Moné, but that is what has happened, and we're better for it. And I agree with you. Obviously, I wish this was her debut match was at a bigger arena, at a you know uh, Staples Center or something like that. They're never
yeah,
gonna run that, but you know what I mean,
yeah.
or a Tokyo Dome or a
Sure.
Osaka Joe Hall in Japan. But her and Kyrie that match almost did feel out of place a little bit.
Yeah,
I saw a few of you talk about that in the chat earlier. It's like they felt so big, the match itself, that it's like, oh, this is like bigger than this building, and maybe that's New Japan not knowing how they are in the US right now because of their strong tapings, right? Because those weren't always doing big buildings, but I think they're trying to grasp how big Mercedes is, and I think had you announced Mercedes and Kyrie before time at a bigger venue, as well as Okada and Tanahashi, not a week in advance, you could have sold an even bigger building, no question about it.
absolutely. I was saying that at the very least they needed to run the San Jose State Event Center, which is where the famous NXT show before WrestleMania 31 was at, because that's at least double the size
Yeah,
and it's a much better building for TV. I guarantee you they would not have had the technological issues that they did have.
yeah.
WWE ran there, so maybe they couldn't get the building. I don't know. I don't know how all that stuff works, but that's my choice. And every time they run this Civic, I'm just like, ugh, there's a better building. Why do we keep running the Civic?
I hope they
Um,
move on up next time.
yeah,
They
yeah,
should know
hopefully.
that by now.